17, 1 through 9. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became bright as light. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will set up 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." And when they raised their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead."
Hi, Metro. Great to be back on this side of the pulpit, as always. Always an honor to be asked. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Armando, for kicking this off with the scripture reading. Isabella for setting the tone with a gorgeous song. All right, quick question. Going to do a little poll here. Has anyone here ever witnessed, seen Manhattanhenge, or Manhattan Solstice, you might have heard it called? Okay. Is there anyone who hasn't seen it but knows what I'm talking about? Okay, cool. Well, just to get us all on the same page, I'll tell you what it is. So twice per year, there's this phenomenon where the sunrise and then later the sunsets line up perfectly with the city grid of Manhattan. And you can watch it rise, fall, right in between the buildings. Now, a lot, you know when this is going to happen, like it's on the calendar. So people plan for it, they go to see it. It's common to see like crowds around the intersections when this is happening. But just imagine you're unaware that this exists, that this phenomenon's happening. Let's say you're walking home from a long day of work, you're feeling the weight of the mundanity of life, and as you're walking, you turn the corner and all of a sudden you see, Anasani, you can change it now, this gorgeous image here. Hopefully folks on Zoom, oh, they can see it, amazing. There it is, brilliant, dazzling sunlight, changing the colors of the city, creating this new scene. And as you stop to watch it, you realize you can only watch it for a few moments before the sun retreats and the world returns to how you've always known it. But you carry that memory with you, that flash of glory during an otherwise ordinary day. The disciples in our story this morning witnessed such an event themselves. Now this morning, Armando asked me, because this passage starts 6 days later, he said 6 days after what? Fair question. So for a little bit of context here. We joined Jesus along with Peter, John, and James on this journey to a mountaintop. But just before this, Jesus' identity, who he is, what his purpose is, had been coming into question. The Pharisees, a couple chapters ago, had demanded a sign from him, some evidence of Jesus' divinity. Well, from there, Jesus went on to ask his own disciples who they say he is. Who do you say I am? Peter, one of our characters from today, he answers correctly, supposedly, the Messiah, God's Son. With all of this going on, Jesus had also just began to reveal his coming death and resurrection, telling them that his followers must take up their own crosses. So surely as this party is climbing the mountain in Matthew 17, these 3 disciples are turning all of these things over in their heads, wanting to believe, but who can ever be sure? Even with all that they had seen, all that they had heard as followers of Jesus so far. And as they're wondering these things, Jesus is suddenly transfigured. meaning his image, his appearance, his figure, if you will, has changed. Now he is before them emitting light like the sun with clothes of dazzling white. And if this weren't enough to signify that something special was happening, two ancient prophets, Moses and Elijah, appeared there with him. And as ancient Jews, these disciples would have known that Moses, the father of their faith, and Elijah, the prophet who foretold the coming of the Messiah, each had their own transfigurative mountaintop encounters with God. So this is an undeniably spectacular scene. I'm not quite sure how to respond, maybe trying to be hospitable. Peter offers to build a shelter for these holy men, maybe anticipating that there's going to be a longer meeting here, when the very Spirit of God came down over them like a bright cloud, clearing any doubt about the meaning of this event, telling them, "This is my Son, the Beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." Wow. Woo! What an event. Can you imagine? What were these disciples expecting to see once they looked up? Wondrous things, Christ transformed into his full glory, heaven having come down to earth. Perhaps they thought this is when everything would finally change, would transform. But when they look up, there he stands, Jesus, their friend, as they'd always known him. For a moment, they caught a glimpse of the full glory of God. And now here they are again, four men of no visible importance, standing in the wilderness. So that's why this story is called the Transfiguration story, told on Transfiguration Sunday, which is today, if you missed Jana telling us that, and not the transformation story. It's the physical appearance, the figure of Jesus that had changed, but only temporarily. He hadn't truly changed in any permanent way. The Jesus who descends the mountain after this is the same Jesus who had climbed it. But I believe that a transformation had occurred, or at least begun, not in the transfigured Christ, but in these three disciples. Yes, these followers had caught a glimpse of the full glory of God. We know they had seen hints of this following Jesus over these past few years, seeing the awesome miracles, hearing the wisdom about God's kingdom. And if their experience up to this point had left any room for doubt, this mountaintop encounter was undeniable. In seeing the image of Jesus change, something changed within them too. Not a visible change, but a transformation of their hearts, of their minds. Now, this transformation wasn't sudden like that brilliant transfiguration. No, what started at this mountaintop would take time to fully make sense. Jesus knew this. He instructed the disciples to keep this experience to themselves until after his resurrection. And although they now knew the truth, having seen the light, the full meaning of this encounter could only be known to them and then revealed to the world in light of that greatest act. The seed of transformation planted in them would continue to grow so that when the time was right, they would be the followers that Jesus had called them to be years before. Not perfect, but fully realized. And the significance of their transformation was not for their own benefit. As changed people, they would go on to change the world. Once all that Jesus had told them came to pass, the truth that they now carried in their hearts was ready to be revealed. It was now clear the wisdom that Jesus had shared, wisdom of loving their neighbors, welcoming strangers, standing firmly for justice, walking in humility, forgiving when it seems impossible, doing everything in love. That this was more than just wishful platitudes. It was truth, like capital T, truth. Truth that can transform a world of hatred and fear and oppression into God's kingdom, into a world where all people's dignity is honored and all are cared for. So the Transfiguration is certainly a grand, incredible moment. But mountaintop experiences, such as this one, aren't meant to last. Like Manhattan Hinge, they shine brightly, but only for a moment, before leaving everything seemingly as it had been before. The transformation that occurred was a slow burn, meant to spread in ways that would sustain, that would last. And as the transformed disciples began to share this good news and others came to know the truth, the world began to transform. And I'm not even like doing the preacher thing of drawing a line from A to B to prove my point. There is another passage that's often read on Transfiguration Sunday that helps us understand this as well. So in 2 Peter verses 1, 16 through 21, which I'm not going to read all of, but in this epistle, Peter recounts this mountaintop experience. He recalls to those to whom he was writing the voice that they themselves heard, saying, "This is my son, my beloved, with whom I am well pleased." I will read for you verse 19 from that passage, which says, "So we have the prophetic message more fully confirmed. You will do well to be attentive to this, as to a lamp shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts." Now, whether this epistle was written by the very Simon Peter who's in this story, or whether it was written in his name by a follower writing on his behalf, but one who would have heard this story from Peter, this shows what a transformative moment it was. This was the point at which the disciples had seen the light, a light that would go on to spread through the world, through time, reaching even us here, now, today. This transformation is what led to the creation of the church. Our very presence here in this morning, worshiping together, shows how much that changed the world. Now, it's also clear to us here that the mission of the church, the transformation of our world into God's kingdom, is still very much a work in progress. And as an institution, Christianity has been and continues to be weaponized, pushing agendas of power, greed, inequality, supremacy, nationalism. I'm not denying any of the harm that's been done in the name of Jesus. But with all of that, we are still here. We are a part of that church and that transformation. Through tumultuous, dark history, the light that those witnesses saw still spread to us, to all who seek to follow it. And all because these disciples bore witness to the transformation within themselves. So I can't say the church has changed the world for the better, but it is undeniable that because these disciples knew the truth, it has been changed for good. Tiffany got my reference. Anyone else? Any Wicked fans here? Now, raise your hands. Any Wicked fans here? Wow, all right. We got some work to do. In general, I try to avoid using like musical theater illustrations in sermons because just like personally, I know I could find one for every passage there is, and I don't want to get bogged down in that. I actually had a different illustration here until yesterday. But as I was writing this out, these words from Wicked were stuck in my mind, of course. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And that's from the song For Good from Wicked. All right. But that song and the story of Wicked, they really do show what a long, difficult process transformation can be, especially when we look through the character of Glenda. All right, I'm going to talk about Wicked a little here. I'm going to try to be vague to avoid some spoilers, but it's Wicked. If you don't know it by now, you're not going to, but you should. Anyway. At the beginning of the show, we don't meet Glinda. We actually see Galinda, this spoiled, rich girl, who's been forced to share her dorm room with Elphaba, the school's freak. And she's not just a freak because of her green skin or her mysterious powers, but also because of her compassion for the animals who are the oppressed citizens of Oz. But because of Galinda's proximity to Elphaba, she can't help but start to change, slowly. When she does feel empathy for this new friend, something new and unfamiliar opens up inside of Galinda, soon to be Glinda. And throughout the show, she's torn between this revelation and her devotion to the wizard, his might, the empire that he's built on the oppression of those very animals. And it's not until she witnesses a final act of sacrifice by Elphaba that her eyes are fully opened, that she's ready to commit truly to her title, Glinda the Good. All right, now, I hope I won't get canceled for singing the praises of the Wicked films, but I do want to talk about one thing that the films did better than the stage show, only by nature of being a different medium. But they showed something at the end that I really liked, demonstrating this change. So at the end of the movie, taking it a step further than the show, there is a moment where Glinda's eyes are fully opened, literally seeing what she was unable to before, and with the clarity of hindsight, understand the meaning of all that had happened around her. So we know it. We know that transformation happens slowly, even painfully, and that God is still working to transform the world through us. And so we must be vigilant, keeping our eyes open for these flashes of the glory of God as they are revealed to us. Because it does happen all around us, evidence of the truth of love being spread. Perhaps that happens in large, undeniable ways, like the Transfiguration or like Manhattan Henge. Perhaps it shows up in more subtle ways, an unexpected moment of tenderness and compassion in a generally cruel world. These moments pop up in the midst of our mostly mundane lives. So having been told the way of truth, we must be tuned in to these moments. Moments that are out of the ordinary, that catch us off guard, that catch our attention. Moments that might not even make sense at the time, but in our gut we know that transformation is underway, that the light of truth is undeniable. Moments that are not themselves meant to last, but are merely glimpses for us to catch. But if we stay open to divine mystery, if we allow change to happen within our minds, within our hearts, we too will be transformed. And as we slowly transform, as hindsight clarifies that love and truth are the only way to heal God's world, we participate in this greater transformation ourselves. For once we've seen the light, it's not ours to hold on to. Our transformation is also preparation. Those life-changing moments that seem a mystery at the time stick with us so that when the darkness does close in, we are ready to shine the light. When another is in need, we are ready to extend a compassionate hand and stand in the truth of love. When we see our neighbors maligned, scapegoated for being different, for being other, whether it's for being an immigrant, a person of color, queer, existing outside of a gender binary, really existing outside of any black and white, us versus them dichotomy that we're told is supposed to exist. And when a cruel world punishes these differences, we are ready to stand in the truth of justice. If we allow the glory of God to transform our minds and hearts, then we keep these glimpses of truth with us. And when hope seems lost and the darkness feels overwhelming, these are the moments that we can hold on to. moments that remind us undeniably of the truth of love, moments that stick with us, flashing brightly and quickly so that we remain changed even when the world again seems mundane. Moments that start a transformation within us that grows and grows and grows until, when the time comes, we can't help but to spread the light.